Hey guys, welcome back to Taboo with Carley Sue podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about all things controversial and often avoided in the Christian faith. I'm your host Carley, and this is part 2 of Tom, I guess. In part 1, Tom shared his story and who he is, how he came to know the Lord, some struggles within that and with his parents, and it was actually really interesting and I learned a lot. So you guys should go watch part 1 of this episode, and part 2 we're going to be talking about suffering and grief. So little introduction. Tom met his first wife at 19, fell in love. You got to go watch the first one. I'm not going to give any spoilers because you have to watch the first one, but how they came to know each other is insane. And they got married at 21, and then 2 years into their marriage, she was unfortunately diagnosed with brain cancer. So Tom, share a little bit about what the process with brain cancer. Did you know that she was gonna die?
Yeah, I mean, so the very first day that we were told that she had something wrong, the doctor recused himself from the case and said, I can't continue with her. She's too young and beautiful. You're going to have to find someone else to work on her and operate on her. So he told me she's probably got 6 months left to live, and then he left and left me with the news to tell her. So he didn't even face her. He just left it with me.
Wow.
So I had to bring her that news, and the interesting part is she actually lived a lot longer than 6 months. She ended up living 4 years, and I was her primary carer. So for the whole time of her sickness, it was really just me and her during our 20s, 24 through 27, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, so 23 to 27. And she passed away in 2010. Right before her 28th birthday, I think. Yeah, so it was super hard work. It was probably, in some ways it's harder when people die quickly because you're not expecting it. So if someone dies really slowly, you're expecting it. But then it's brutal in a different way because it just goes on and on and on and doesn't stop. So there's so many different ways you can get stuck in bad thought patterns, bad habits. There's so many ways that I could have probably picked up really bad. I actually have no idea, other than the grace of God, how I didn't develop any kind of weird or cheat or anything during that block of time. Because
really? Wait,
so many bad things could have happened. Just so many bad things. When you're young and now you're under the gun and now you have to take care of a grown person and you're supposed to work too and take care of your own place and full-time care for someone who no longer can take care of themselves. It's so tough. It's so hard. I must, toward the end, in her last year of life, I must have done 4 to 6 loads of laundry a day. I cooked 3 meals. I was running the ministry from the bedroom. All of her appointments, schedules, medicines. There were buckets of medicine I had to give her every day. Therapies. Yeah, It was a lot. It was a lot. So.
Were you able to start grieving while she was still alive?
There was probably 2 deaths I grieved.
Okay.
I probably grieved after she started having brain surgeries, which she had 11 of them. 11 brain surgeries. She had radiation, chemotherapy, and some experimental treatments on top of that. So all of those things sometimes simultaneously. So there's the initial death you grieve of the woman that you knew before all that work is done.
Was she not the same after?
She was handicapped for sure. Anytime you have work done on your brain, it definitely affects. It probably doesn't affect who you are on the inside, but it affects your ability to communicate, do things for yourself. The way you speak changes. The way you process information changes. So the first thing that was obvious to know. Well, like after you've had a brain surgery, the first thing that happens is you wake up and you have some moments of like clarity where you can communicate and say some stuff before you go back to sleep. And then the swelling of the brain sets in. And that's when the most dramatic changes happen is, you know, it's natural if you hack through the brain, there's going to be a wound and then there's going to be trauma. Even if it's like they made it on purpose, trauma, there's going to be all the natural things the body does to deal with that trauma. So the first thing that happens is your brain swells up. It's called edema. And when the brain swells up, your brain's contained in the skull. So, you know, it sort of pushes into the skull.
Yeah.
And so all the pain of that, like headaches and all that kind of stuff, is part of it. But the other thing that happens is like your face starts to droop because like I don't know if I remember the full reason why the facial droop happens, but when the brain experiences trauma, like the brain controls the muscles in your face and all of that. So when you lose the functionality of being able to control your face just kind of, well, like sags. So that's the first big noticeable thing you can see if like someone's had a head trauma is the side of the brain that was traumatized. The other side of the because it's opposites. Like the left side controls right stuff, left stuff. So whatever side's been worked on or injured, the other side just kind of. So It was like everything on that side of her body just drooped, like her arm, her leg, her face. And for a time she was completely paralyzed on that side. So the first time it was so scary because she'd wake up and she can't use her arm. She can't use her leg. What's happening to me? She can't even say what's happening to me. Her words are all jumbled. But we learned from 11 brain surgeries that sometimes as the brain heals, some of that stuff comes back. But with every brain surgery, it would get harder for things to come back. And then by the end, things just weren't coming back anymore. You know.
So that was the first death that you grieved.
First death. And then the second death is just the person, because by year 4 I didn't think of her exactly like a wife. Obviously she was still my wife, but things were different. Like I was her carer. Like I controlled everything about her life. I controlled when she used the bathroom, when she got up to take a shower. You know, everything about her life was controlled by me. So it changes the nature of the relationship. So the person, Amy, which was just different from when we were young and in love. Just the person that she was, you're just grieving her as a person, you know?
Yeah.
Not saying I didn't love her, it's just the love changed, you know?
So what was it? So after she had like died, what was that like grief process like for you?
It's weird. It's kind of weird because the first moments of her death were kind of like, sometimes feels guilty to say this, but like relief, because I'd been bearing so much weight for so long.
Wow.
That when she was gone, it was like, oh, you know, like I could breathe.
Wow.
You know, because there was no end in sight. You know, she was just going to live this way and I had to live that way. Super, super unhealthy. It was the most unhealthy I ever was in my life because I was propping her up and, you know, I was wasting away. And so there was like a period of time where it was like relief, and then a period of time where it was like, okay, time to get myself together. But grief was like, when I was feeling grief, it was like super intense. It was paralyzing. And I didn't think I needed a break because I felt relief at first. So I just kept working. And I upset a lot of people during those years. In fact, I upset people so often and so regularly that I just used to carry around a stack of gift cards. I just hand them out to people. Are you serious? Because I was like, I don't know why, but I upset people in meetings. Sometimes I'd even give people a gift card before the meeting started because I was like, I've been upsetting a lot of people lately, and just in case, here you go. Here's your gift card.
What in the world?
And then on the weekends, I would like completely fall apart and just crawl into bed and turn on the TV and stay in bed all weekend until it was time to work again.
Wow.
So the Lord was really gracious because that was the worst that I got. Like I just was miserable to be around, I guess, or whatever was happening there. You were in cohort 2 of Pulse, so you got to hear Dr. Tim Robnett. He spoke at several retreats. He was the white hair guy. He was Nick's coach. He was my coach. And so Dr. Tim also wrote the master class curriculum that you learned, like all of it, especially in year 2. We were still using Tim's stuff very heavily. But back then, Tim had a very similar role in Palau that I have today. In those days, Tim was our coach. He helped us learn evangelism. And when Amy died, he was at her funeral. And he was also where I went to properly grieve when it was time to grieve. So I went to his ranch in Oregon, and he has horses, and I shoveled horse crap for 6 weeks and just stayed with my mentor, and he helped me during that time.
Wow.
So Dr. Tim's a legend. You guys were all like, why do we got this old guy coming to do these meetings? But for so many of us who were your age, wanting to preach the gospel, he was to you guys what Alex and Nick and I are to you guys in the Pulse 100, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when she passed away and he invited me, him and his wife, Miss Sharon, they really just took me in and took care of me and make sure I didn't go off a cliff, and stayed in the game and
wow,
centered me in the gospel.
Was there ever moments that you like blamed God?
No, in fact, it got clearer and clearer. Like from day one, when she first had the cancer, like I introduced Amy to Christ, and it was like, oh, and back in those days, there was a lot of prosperity gospel stuff. In some ways, it was kind of a new thing in the church. And I was really being like wooed by that stuff, like your best life now stuff. Like you come to Christ, you live your best life. And I kind of preached that gospel to Amy. And in a way, she did get her best life, because when she went to meet God, like she's in eternity, no more surgeries, she's totally healed there. But in some ways, I was probably not preaching a correct gospel to her. But it was the way I understood it. Like my life was getting better and better with Christ. So I just imagined that her life would get better and better with Christ. So I realized when she was diagnosed, and I had to tell her she was going to die, which was a wild thing to have to tell your wife, like walk up to her room and say, you got 6 months left to live. Like that's a crazy thing to put on someone to do, like I knew, like it clicked immediately that, oh, I introduced this woman to Christ to like lead her directly to Christ. Like literally I'm walking her right to
the gates of heaven.
The gates of heaven. So whatever I got to do to help this woman get to heaven, that's why I've been sent to her. So fast forward to the end of life. She passed away in my home. She lived there full time. The nurse that we hired to help me take care of her at the end of life was able to tell me when she had 5 minutes left to live, 2 minutes left to live, okay, she's going to die any minute now, so I'm going to leave and let you have privacy kind of thing. And we had like this little worship moment around her bed, like we were singing and praying and crying and just surrounding her bed. And we had some few close friends and my family. And her mom wasn't able to be there actually. So it was mostly my people. And I crawled up next to her in bed and on her good side that she could see and hear. And she was not really awake too much at that time, by that time. And I just kept stroking her cheek and saying, don't hold on to this life. Jesus is a better husband than I'll ever be.
Aww.
Like, if you see him, run to him. Like, run. Don't even look back. Don't look at me. Don't look for me. Just look for him. And then when she passed, one single tear, just one tear, And that was it. That was it. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Wow.
It's real. That's how it happened. And there were other people there who saw it too.
I just feel like that'd just be so hard to just like lose the woman that you love. Like, how do you like come back from that? Like, I always told, like, I have this like fear that if I marry somebody, like, God forbid, one of us would die or he would die when we're somewhat young. And it's like, how do you just like, how do you move on from that? Like, how do you recover from like losing the person that you love most?
Yeah. Well, firstly, you got to love Jesus the most. Like, that's the first rule.
Yeah.
You love Jesus the most. Like, that's rule number one. But, I mean, what was so crazy? So, I don't think I told you this yet either. But like lots of people who live around these parts, they know this part of the story well. Like, she passed away an hour after Good Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, like, she...
I have two grandpas that passed away to cancer.
Yeah.
I have one that just passed away about a month ago from cancer. And then my other one, he passed away when I was 5, but he passed away on Easter.
Wow. I thought, if you lose someone, like when when you're celebrating Good Friday, you're thinking about death anyway. Like, you're thinking about the death of Jesus, and she was dying during Good Friday. So like you're internalizing the fact that this is happening, and then Good Friday ended, and it felt like Jesus is like, yeah, I don't share that day with anybody, so she can pass later. So I'm sure people die on Good Friday, but
so
it's just like Good Friday
it was
happened.
literally like 1 a.m. on like a Saturday.
Right. So she passes away 1 a.m. on Saturday. Good Friday's over.
Wow.
I'm supposed to preach the next morning, Easter Sunday, for the church.
Oh my gosh, and you did.
And I did. I called my pastor. After I had my time, I'm fast forwarding a little bit. I called my pastor. I had my wedding ring, and I'm spinning it on the table, just like thinking about the fact that like this covenant is over. I did this. It's not like I did it for 50 years, but for what I signed up to do, till death do us part, it's over. What do I do with this ring? I was asking my mom, what do I do with this ring? So we were talking about that. I call my pastor. My pastor's like, how you doing? Like, Amy's gone. Oh, wow. That's intense. How are you doing? I was like, I think I feel relief. And in the meantime, there's two guys with her in a bag bopping her out the door. Like, dunk, dunk, dunk. And like that's happening behind me while I'm talking to him.
What?
It just felt like surreal, and it was like a plastic bag. It was like they rolled her into a plastic bag, zipped it up, and they're carrying her out the door and bonking her along as they go. And I'm like, it was just weird. Like she was a piece of furniture, It was just weird. It was just weird. And so I'm talking to Joe about it. Pastor Joe, you'll meet him this weekend. He's and she's like, and Joe's like, so you're okay? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And I was like, but tell me this, like, what are we going to do about church tomorrow? Because I was supposed to give the gospel. He's like, well, what do you want to do about church tomorrow? And I was like, I'd like to kick Satan in the balls, please. So he goes, he laughs like this, ha, ha, ha. So he's like, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, let's do it. So we had this like combined one big service at Connecticut College. It was like 1,000 people there. It was a big service. And that's how we told the public, like we waited until the gospel. And then as I was doing the gospel, I said, Amy left last night, and then continued on in the gospel and gave a call, and loads of people came to Christ. It was amazing. Like, I still meet people to this day who are like, I came to Christ at that Easter service. And it's like, what?
Wow.
Jeez. One of the people in the crowd who came to Christ was my future father-in-law. And he'd come to church for the first time that Sunday. So this is Summer, my current wife's dad, because his grandson had a brain tumor, and Amy had just died of brain cancer. he came to make a deal with God for Ryder's life. And I'm up on stage like, no deals with God. Like, you surrender, you give your life to Christ. I'm saying that. Like, just, this isn't about anybody else. This is about you and him. Join Amy and I, make the best decision of your life, and enter into eternity knowing that God's got you. Like, he's got you. And give his life to Christ that day. And years later, when I'm dating Summer, she brings me home to meet mom and dad, right? And he's still a new believer. And he's like sitting there on his porch and he goes, young man, some years ago, you lost your wife, He goes, and I was there. It was amazing. Like, I don't know how you did that speech. I don't know if it was the day before or a week later or something, but you lost her. And now you're giving this amazing speech. He's like, I haven't missed a Sunday since then. It was an amazing speech. And he said, it was so good. And I'm like thinking, like, amazing speech. Like, what? Like, is he talking about Easter service? Like, when I preach the gospel? And I'm processing all this while he's saying this to me. And he's like, he said, that speech was so good, I had Summer put it on DVD. When our employees are having a bad day, I send them into their office and tell them to watch this DVD. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's handing out my tapes, my evangelistic tapes to people when they're having bad days. So, like, that was like a green light that God was like saying, hey, you should continue forward with Summer and stuff.
So how did, going into that then, like, how did you see the Lord, like, restore that? Like, when did you even, were you ever interested to get married again?
Yeah, in fact, I was probably interested to get married again like a year later, but it was like, I was thinking, because people made such a big deal about me doing it right for 7 years. Like, I mean, okay, I was married for 7 years. We didn't divorce. I didn't cheat on her. So gold medal, people would preach sermons and put our picture up, and it would be so embarrassing. Like, like, okay. And like, I let the public do that.
That's weird.
It was weird. And there was a lot of weird attention from females who must have thought widowerhood was awesome. Cause like,
awesome.
I got like a lot of very strange attention from women during those years. And then they hear the story and be like, oh, and then they're like, I was like, yo, this is weird. So I had a hard time thinking about how I was going to start moving on, because it was like, if I'm from this community, everybody knows my story and people act weird like I'm some kind of saint because I didn't cheat for 7 years. It's not like I don't have flaws, but the way people honored it was like, it just wasn't good for me, Because like eventually, anyway, whatever. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm just going to say that I imagine that I'd have to go somewhere and like date in secret or something where people wouldn't know the story. But then when they find out the story, they'd freak out. Like, that's too much. And it was like, So probably I definitely felt like, I'm better married than single. I need to get remarried. And it took about 7 or 8 years. Let's see, 2010. No, that's not true. If she died 2010, I got married. No, it didn't take 7 or 8 years. It took 5 or 6 years. 2015. We got married in 2015. It took 5 years to get remarried. So the years just start going together, because Summer and I have been married 10 years this summer. So it's like the years just start flying by. So I have to like backtrack.
So what is it like? Well, okay. What is it like to like love two women like that, where you like
I actually preach a message on that. I started the message.
Like I've loved two men before, but that we were dating. Like you've loved two women that you've like given yourself away to.
And the love doesn't go away.
Okay, that was my other question.
Yeah, I still fully love Amy and I fully love Summer, and it's like that's a thing. But Amy's gone, so it's not the same, if that makes sense. It's not like, I love two women and I don't know what to do between the two of them. It's not that. it's not polygamous in the sense of, oh, if Amy were alive, I'd be happily married to 2 women. Probably it'd be the opposite. It'd be a miserable life trying to figure out how to serve 2 women. Well, it would be a lot.
You would only be married to one.
I'm just saying, in a polygamous world, which some guys in the Bible dealt with that. Some guys were married to like lots of women. I'm like saying, if Amy suddenly resurrected and I had 2 wives, I don't think that would be a wonderful thing. I think I'd be struggling with, how do I... And everybody who begged for Amy's healing and her to miraculously recover, like our relationship had changed so much as a carer over 4 years. It was like we'd have weird marital problems if she was suddenly like normal. Because I controlled every aspect of her life, you know? Like, I don't know. I guess God has the power to reset things.
Right.
But just imagine. Sorry, you asked about loving 2 women.
Or like, how do you like love, like, I don't know.
Yeah. All I can say is when you complete a covenant, like, it's not like we divorced. Like, I fulfilled the agreement. So I wasn't bound to it anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was released. So probably spiritual releasing, but also there was like this release when she was gone. Like, oh, I'm not responsible for this anymore. But my memory of her is completely intact. Everything I appreciated and loved about her is completely entrapped and like enshrined in my brain. Like there's a box for it, and it's just like, this is...
Does Summer ever feel like less than?
You know, Summer's family is from a scrap metal family. Like, we own a bunch of recycling centers, and she's a picker. Like, you know, you kids love to go vintage clothing shopping and stuff like that. I thought this was one of the most ironic things, that Summer finds great value digging through trash and finding gold. You know what I'm saying? Like, she literally has a family industry we're surrounded by where they find secondhand used stuff. I said, just like Summer, to dumpster dive and find a piece of scrap metal worth something to her, brush it off. That's a husband. Like,
that's what she did with you.
Yeah, exactly. She dumpster dove for me, I guess.
My.
But she, you know, I think that there's something interesting about that she finds value in used things. And I was like thinking about this. Like, if you're from the Christian stratosphere and you're trying to get married and you went through the 90s with I Kissed Dating Goodbye and all these other different Christian self-help books for how you're supposed to do it, there is not a category for widowerhood or how you manage that if you're trying to get in a relationship with one. Because for the Christian girls, there was like 2 categories. There was young ones, because I was like now approaching 30. So young that they have no life experience, or girls my age who already had a kid or were divorced, or like, it seemed like really tough choices. There's nothing in the middle. There was nothing. And truthfully, like, I'm coming into it and I've already married. So like, I remember this one girl who was interested in me. She's like, I want the man that I marry to love me the most, the best ever. Yep, all that stuff. And I'm like, that's really good. And you should have that. It's not going to be with me, though. Like, we should just end this now. Because I have nothing to offer you that's first or better or anything. Because I've done all my first somewhere else. So, like, you have to, like, if someone's going to be with me, they have to already accept in their mind that they're not first, not necessarily better, but it doesn't mean you suck because you're second. It just means you're chronologically second. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that everything that happened there was good and cool and godly, and I've left it. But I didn't leave it because I broke my responsibilities. I fulfilled my covenant, and it's over, you know?
Yeah. So,
you know, I had my rules, and I was like, I don't want to take any brokenness. I don't want anybody with kids. And guess what? Like, the Lord gave me 2 step kids, and I had to step right into some brokenness, and it was like in a broken family. And I thought, well, I'm not really that saintly. Like, people have preached messages with me and Amy's face on the screens, but I was a husband for 7 years. That's not really that long of a time.
Yeah.
It's not long enough to really celebrate it. I appreciate that people did that, but the truth is I've been married to Summer longer than I was married to Amy now. Anything that I thought I was an expert on from completing my 7-year marriage, I've learned through my marriage with Summer that I am not an expert on. And
she's kept you humble.
just because I successfully finished one marriage to one girl means 0 for the second marriage. You have to start all over again.
So how did you find God in your suffering?
Yeah. The first thing is the suffering. When it started, after that doctor told me that she was going to die, I got in the it was in the basement of a hotel, basement of the hospital. I get on the elevator and I hit the stop button on the elevator and I felt like a piano had just landed on my chest. And I was just clumped on the floor. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm 23 years old. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm still a kid. I don't know things. I don't know. I barely know how to be an adult. What am I going to do? And literally in that moment, the Holy Spirit, it's not like there was an audible voice. It was just like he highlighted what I was coming out of my mouth. It was like it slowed down and it was like, what are you going to do? And from day one, I made a choice. Like before the suffering even started, God gave me a choice and he said, what are you going to do? There was no, are you going to trust me? There was none of that. It was just, what are you going to do? It was my own words reflected back in my face.
That's so good.
And like, I was like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? And I was thinking, I was stunned. I was like, the piano was right there on my chest, but I did feel like something was holding that piano up. And if it was like, let go, it would crush me. But it was on me enough to feel it. But it was being held. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to go with you, God, right? All right, I'm going to follow you. And I get up, I push the button. I go back to her room to tell her she's going to die. And like I just ripped off the Band-Aid and told her. And it wasn't good delivery. Like I wish it was probably the coldest delivery ever and a cold hug as well, because how do you do that? Like I just didn't know how to do it. I was trying to like do what I thought she wanted me to do, which was give her the information and just let her deal with it. I think the first couple of years taking care of her, I was terrible at it. I was so selfish. There'd be times I'd get so impatient because I thought we should be doing something else, or I should be doing something else, or something more important than what I was doing. And by the end, I remember I'd sit in a chair next to her bed, and I would and this chair was like one of those standing chairs, and I would grip the sides of the chair like almost till my fingers would bleed, just grip it, so bored out of my mind, wanting to be anywhere else but in that chair. And do you know Brad Butcher? Brad is one of the coaches from Pulse. I think you'd recognize his face if you saw him, but he also worked for Palau back then. And he became my very best friend because he walked with me through all that time that she was sick and dying. Brad called me one day and he goes, hey, Tom, why do we worship? And I was like, I don't know, to feel God, I don't know. And he's like, no, but seriously, think about it. What are we doing when we worship God? Like, what are we doing? What are we? And I'm like, I don't know. We're being grateful. He's like, no, we're not being grateful. He's like, that's when we're praising God, maybe. But why do we worship? And I wasn't getting it right. I wasn't getting the point. And he'd just say, because we want to experience his presence. We worship God for his presence. We're asking him to come and be with us. And then he flipped it on me and he said, so if when we worship, we're asking God to come and be with us, then your best ministry as a husband to Amy is to just be with her.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, what? Like I've chewed on that for over a decade. Like, whoa, my ministry of presence to my wife is the highest calling of my life. And here I am clawing at the chair trying to get out of here and be anywhere else. And Brad saying that to me, the conclusion of that is me telling myself, in 6 months, this woman's going to be gone and you're going to wish you're only in this chair sitting next to her, and she's not going to be here anymore.
Wow.
So, yeah, I worship God. I cry out for his presence, and then have that flipped on me and said, as a husband, what's required of me is my presence, and that's it. Like, that's all I can do, and that's more than enough.
Wow. Okay, we need to wrap up.
Boom.
I have 2 more questions.
Oh, wow. 2 more.
Oh, I'm just thinking of people who are going through grief.
Yeah, totally. Maybe I can anticipate them and give it, because you want to wrap up. So 2 things when grieving. First is, in year 1, there are these incredible, we call them waves of emotions, like waves of grief that hit you. And when they hit you, they're like paralyzing. They come out of nowhere and they're just like whoosh. Feels like a beach wave.
What do you do in that moment?
I had a pastor who took me out to lunch and he goes, you ever experience these waves of grief? I'm like, yeah, totally. And he goes, guess what? Just like at the beach, if you get caught in a wave like that, there's nothing you can do. You blow around, the sand gets up in your nose, and then it passes. And he said, never make a decision when you're experiencing waves of grief. And he said, and wait till you find your footing on the sand, and then just start taking steps forward. You know. So for a year, then a year later, this pastor comes back to me. He said, how you doing with your waves of emotion? I'm like, I did exactly what you said. I just collapsed in my bed. He said, they're starting to pass now. And I said, they're starting to pass. And I know they're starting to pass because on the weekends, I don't feel like crawling into bed anymore and just disappearing into bed. I told him, I said, I took the TV one day and I just dropped it on the floor and it sat like crooked, dented into the wall. Just threw it on the ground because I was sick of it. He's like, oh, that's really good. He said, so now you probably need the advanced step of creating an emergency exit plan. And he said, now that you're at this point and you feel those waves of grief, you need to pre-think of where you're going to go to exit the building before you get stuck there, before the grief comes on. And like those 2 pieces of advice were like my North Star, year 1, year 2, and moving on. And all of that masked with just like having good community around me. And not accepting the fact that like grief is not like something that makes you a victim. Like you're not a victim to grief. Like grief is the body's natural way of healing. You make grief. Grief doesn't happen to you, even though it feels like it's happening to you. It's something that you work through and you build something with it.
Wow.
If you approach grief as a process of being shaped into the image of Christ, like grief can be very productive. And grief can build you into an image bearer of God for others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last question. This was I was going to ask you in the car yesterday when you were talking about it. But if you knew that Amy was going to be diagnosed with cancer and you had to go through those 4 years and die,
Jeez.
Would you do it again?
Well, I don't think having future knowledge helps things, because there's a lot of things that people probably wouldn't do if they knew. Like if you just read the story, like, and then this happens, and this happens. Oh, that sounds horrible. I'm not going to choose that. So not like knowing it in advance at that time would probably not be helpful. But me sitting here right now, like I wouldn't change anything. I could answer it that way. I wouldn't change anything about my life. I feel like the wins, the losses, the ups, the downs. Like, it's been a sweet ride. Like, even the bad parts are part of the good ride. Who wants to read a book where everything just works out all the time anyway? Like, there's got to be some suspense or some drama to, like, hook you in before the hero of the day shows up and makes everything cool by the end. You know what I mean? So even the difficult parts of my life that are even cringy and I don't want to think about too much.
Cringy.
I'm just saying, like, all of it is part of what makes us who we are, you know? And life with the Lord is good. Like, life with the Lord is a sweet ride, you know?
Wow. Well, thank you, Tom. This was... Dang, bro, you got me crying. That's the first time
I can't believe you cried. I was like, whoa, she's crying.
That was the first time I've ever cried on the podcast.
Dang.
That really...
I got you both today. You and Kirby.
Yeah.
Lots of tears.
Well,
I almost
Tom has
cried.
a podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Faith to Faith.
Gospel Cast.
Faith to Faith Gospel Cast.
Isn't that cool?
He likes to interview Gen Zers.
I do.
And he likes to bridge the gap between millennials and Gen Z.
You should watch Carley on the Gospel Cast. She's on there.
Go watch our episode out there.
It's pretty good. I learned a lot about fertility. And how to fix
That's
arguments.
so out of context. That is so out of context. So now you actually have to go watch it because that is so out of context. But
thank you.
Anyways, wow, thank you so much for sharing your story and just being so vulnerable and honest. That really touched my heart.
Thanks.
And I hope I never have to go through something like that.
I hope
to that level.
Either.
I mean, I've lost grandparents, but
yeah,
can't imagine what it's like to lose someone like that. And I know my grandma is walking through that right now. She just lost her husband. They've been together since they were 13, and
whoa,
he died at 64.
Whoa.
Yeah, they their whole life has just been each other.
Wow.
And so I can't imagine what she's going through right now.
It's crazy.
And same thing with my mom. She's going through it because it was her father, and and he had her at 17. So basically, yeah, it's been crazy. But just thank you for sharing the hope of Jesus. And with us. And yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and it touched you, and maybe y'all were crying up there too, crying in the club.
Crazy.
But anyways, go watch part 1 if you haven't seen it. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you, Tom. You're awesome. You're a legend, and can't wait for this weekend here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But I'll catch you in the next Taboo episode. Peace.